It's 250 for the whole thing.
الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So as we continue discussing the book Bayan Fadl Ilm Salaf ala Ilm al-Khalaf by Al-Hafid Ibn Rajab Al-Hanbali rahimahullah, and this particular book that he discussed the excellence and the virtue of the ilm of the Salaf over that of the Khalaf. So we had started discussing the book from yesterday, and we have discussed what the author rahimahullah mentioned, that matters pertaining to the virtue of knowledge. Then also he discussed knowledge that are said to be blameworthy. Then discussing by way of the Quran. Then now he wished to discuss a hadith that pertains to this topic of the praise of ilm and the virtue of knowledge, and also those things that discusses knowledge that is said to be blameworthy. So we'll continue from where we had stopped in the last session. Bi'awnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. Aywa?
Sheikh, where do you want me to read from? Where do you want me to read from?
Did he show you?
Yeah, okay, tell you.
From that spot, yeah.
All right. Bismillahi wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillahi. So the compilers of the Sunan also recorded this via a number of different routes. The division of knowledge in the Sunnah. It is for this reason that the Sunnah also divides knowledge into that which is beneficial and that which is not, directing us to take refuge from knowledge that is not beneficial and to ask for knowledge that is. Muslim records on the authority of Zayd ibn Arqam that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, used to say, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min ilmin la yanfa' wa min qalbin la yashsha' wa min nafsin la tashba' wa min da'watin la yustajabu lah. Translation means, Allah, I take refuge with you from knowledge that does not benefit, from a heart that has no fear, from a soul that is never content, and from an invocation that is not responded to. The compilers of the Sunan also recorded this via a number of different routes. From the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, in some of them occur the words, وَمِن دُعَاءٍ لَا يُسْمَعُ, from a supplication that is not heard. And in others, there is an additional wording, أَعُوذُ بِكَ مِنْ هَؤُلَاءِ الْأَرْبَعِ.
So the author rahimahullah Ibn Rajab that now discussing concerning matter relating to, as he mentioned, a hadith relating to ilm that is either beneficial and ilm which is not beneficial. So he started to cite some hadith regarding this matter. So he started a hadith in the Sahih Muslim by and the hadith of Zayd ibn Arqam, where the Prophet Islam, as we had discussed hadith yesterday, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min ilmin la yanfa. Wa Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I seek refuge with you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from knowledge that does not benefit. Then we mentioned, وَمِن قَلْبٍ لَا يَخْشَى, then also from a heart that does not take heed. And I mentioned regarding that a heart that doesn't pay, say that of the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that when it listens to the maw'idah, to any form of reminder, it doesn't pay, say, having an impact on the person. So the person doesn't take heed. The person read the Quran, it has no impact on the Quran and the individual. So the person listening or nasiha, the person doesn't per se take on nasiha. So that's the heart that does not find fear in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then I mentioned, وَمِن نَفْسٍ لَا تَشْبَعُ, and we discussed regarding that's a state where a person always wanting more. So the person does not find content. The person always wanting more and more and more. That's the person that does not find contentment. And I mentioned, وَمِن دَعْوَةٍ لَا يَسْتَجَابَ, that the supplication it is not answered. And we mentioned that there are asbab, ways by which, because of those reasons, if they are present, that it may be a barrier from the person supplication being answered. And we mentioned some of those reasons. We mentioned al-dhunub, we mentioned akl min haram, the person eating from thing which is haram, by being their sustenance is from haram, they're earning from haram, ash-shahwa, the person following of their vain desires, also allahu, person involved in things of lust, al-dhulm, the person oppressing others, tark al-dua, where a person does not make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, leave this away. Also al-istijal, the person also acting hasty in wanting a response. And also tark al-wajibat, the person leaving away things which is wajib, and other factors that may be reason why our supplication is not answered from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Aywa. Then I mention ashabu sunan, خرج آل سنن من وجوه متعددة. Then he mentioned concerning آل سنن, meaning Abu Dawud, Tirmidhi, Nasa'i, Ibn Majah. They are said to be آل Sunan. So the ulama of hadith that they have referred to particular set of books as آل Sunan, the books of Sunan, which are in general, when the word as Sunan, آل Sunan is used, it is in reference to 4 main books: Abu Dawud, At-Tirmidhi, Nasa'i, and Ibn Majah. Those are said to be the 4 books, Ahl Sunan. Even though you have other books of Sunan, but that's the terminology that is used for those particular 4. Aywa.
Now, from a supplication, وَمِن دُعَائِ لَا يَسْمَعُ, from a supplication that is not heard. And in others there is an additional wording, أَعُوذُ بِكَ مِنْ هَؤُلَاءِ الْأَرْبَعِ, I take refuge with you from these 4. Nasa'i records on the authority of Jabir that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, used to supplicate, Allahumma inni as'aluka ilman nafi'an wa a'udhu bika min ilmin la yanfa'u, which means, Allah, I beseech you for knowledge that benefits, and I take refuge with you from knowledge that does not benefit.
And at hadith they mention here, hadith in the Nasa'i fi Sunan al-Kubra. So at time the author mentioned kharaja an-Nasa'i, but Nasa'i rahimahullah, he has 2 books of hadith. Nam as-Sunan as-Sughra, that's the one that is within Kutub al-Sitta, and al-Kubra is the larger collection. So when they refer to it, Kharaj al-Nasa'i, in most case, or what is in there, in most part, they mean, what is meant is al-Sughra. So they normally will specify is al-Kubra is intended. So he mentioned a hadith here that of the ulama, that Ibn Hibban also narrated a hadith, and some of those who hold the hadith to be, as we will discuss, aywa, that's a part of those hadith regarding that similar meaning as to the other hadith being discussed regarding seeking refuge with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from knowledge that does not benefit, and asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us beneficial knowledge. Aywa.
This was also recorded by Ibn Majah, his wording being that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, ask Allah for beneficial knowledge and take refuge with Allah from knowledge that does not benefit. Now, Tirmidhi has also recorded it on the authority of Abu Huraira with the wording, Allahumma anfa'ni bima a'lamtani wa alamni ma yanfa'ni wa zidni ilman, which means, Allah, benefit me by what you have taught me. Teach me what will be of benefit to me, and increase me in knowledge. Nasa'i records a hadith on the authority of Anas that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, used to supplicate with the words, Allahumma anfa'ni bima a'lamtani wa a'lamni ma yanfa'ni wa warzuqni ilman tanfa'ni. O Allah, benefit me with what you have taught me. Teach me what will be of benefit to me, and nourish me with knowledge by which you may benefit me. Abu Nu'aym records the hadith of Anas that the Prophet...
So the matter I mentioned regarding concern is not that the Prophet ﷺ is seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant him and to protect him from it, not that al-ilm al-nafa is ilm concern that where a person is able to act upon it. So he said, we said, no, so knowledge where one is able to act and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala based upon basira, insight, and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala correctly. And that the person that he tries to, with his knowledge, that the intent and the purpose is to remove from oneself jahl. So the purpose of seeking of ilm shari, is for the person to remove from oneself al-jahl, ignorance, and not to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala incorrectly. So the person having this knowledge is able to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have legislated for him to be worshipped. So which is the ilm and nafa. Where, so said in general, this knowledge is to remove from oneself ignorance, and also regarding the deen, and that matter relating to ignorance regarding matters, the person of understanding of matters concerning usul al-deen or usul al-aqidah, having understanding of the matters relating to the person's belief or creed, ahkam al-shar'iyya, known how to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also adab al-shar'iyya, and also the correct behavior that one should have as a Muslim. So the knowledge that one is seeking from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where the person can have insight regarding and have sound knowledge regarding his belief, his practice, and also his adab, and also his conduct and behavior. Aywa.
Abu Na'im records the hadith of Anas that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, used to say, Allahumma inni nas'aluka imanan da'iman farubba iman ghayra da'iman wa as'aluka ilman nafi'an farubba ilman ghayru nafi'an.
هذا حديث they mention a hadith فيه يعني إسناده راوي مبهم. So the hadith is said to be daif. So this hadith is said are said to be daif. Ibn Rajab rahimahullah, when he mentioned this hadith, he mentioned him in a way which is a sign, regardless mentioned before, that he's one of the ulama for what? Hadith. So the way that he mentioned the hadith is a sign of his skill in ilm al-hadith and using the terminology of ilm al-hadith. It may not manifest in the translation, but in the Arabic it is clear. But it won't be known to the people who are specialists in hadith regarding how we narrate the hadith. He mentioned kharajahu at-Tirmidhi. So that indicate that the source of this hadith, it goes back to one of those books of the primary books of hadith, but he's using the proper terminology. So you wouldn't say, for example, a book like Arba'in an-Nawawi, kharaja an-Nawawi, because that's not a primary book. Clear? So he knows, so is known to use certain terminologies that is within the science of hadith, and those things are being mentioned here, but may not be captured much in the translation. Aywa.
Abu Dawood records the hadith of Buraidah that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, of surety, some forms of speech are magic, and some knowledge is ignorance.
Aywa. So again, regarding concern that clarifying regarding inna min al-bayan as-sihr, that regarding concerning of those things of bayan, regarding the person we have clarity is sihr, in a way of speaking of this matter in a blameworthy way. And that hadith or that narration to be discussed again later will be mentioned again. So this is to show regarding that at times, regarding a person, regarding his speech, then it can be seen as something which is a sihr, as a deception. So that matter they mentioned, then the Shah mentioned, wa inna min al-ilm jahl, and of knowledge it's something of jahl. And he will explain concerning what the Salaf meant by this, or what is meant by this, from the aqwal of the Salaf. Ibn Rajab rahimahullah, as we mentioned, one of the ulama of hadith. So of the things concerning that with hadith, as we find when he mentioned about knowledge that is beneficial and knowledge that is not beneficial, he cited differently, we said riwayat of the same hadith. So you have many narration that are very similar, difference maybe in the wordings, but very similar in meaning from different sahabi and from different books. So they said, so he's like combining those different narration on the same topic. So a topic regarding a hadith that mentioned about seeking of beneficial knowledge and protect oneself from knowledge which is not beneficial. He cite various narration on this matter. Aywa.
Sa'saha ibn Sawhan explained the statement, and some knowledge is ignorance. He explained that to mean a scholar burdens himself with taking on knowledge that does not concern him, by which he becomes ignorant. It has also been explained to mean that knowledge which brings about harm and does not benefit is actually ignorance. This is because being ignorant of it is better than knowing it.
So an alim taking on knowledge that is not of benefit, regarding concerning, for example, matter regarding ilm al-kalam. So an alim studying concerning ilm al-kalam and falsafa, these are those things that an alim is not in need of. So that is going over the top regarding an alim studying of these things that in reality would not be of benefit to him. But so that's concerning what I mentioned, inna min al-ilm jahl, that those things, it is being ignorant of it is maybe more suitable to not have knowledge of those things. Aywa.
So understand that if the one ignorant of it is in a better condition than the one who learned it, then this knowledge is actually worse than ignorance. Such is the case with magic and other types of knowledge that harm one's religious and worldly well-being.
Okay, so we discussed before regarding ilm that knowledge is said to be haram. That studying of those things, even just the study of those things, is of no value and of no benefit. As a person studying that knowledge is something that you cannot apply. Based upon the Islam sees as something which is haram. So the person is, so for in Islam, studying like a person having knowledge of studying sihr. The person studying concerning matter regarding the tricks regarding gambling, then there's no benefit. Because it's not something that one can apply Islamically. So learning of things that have no benefit is haram in Islam. Then those are of knowledge of the person that is said to be evil knowledge. Aywa.
Chapter 2. Branches of non-beneficial knowledge. An explanation of some of the branches of knowledge that do not benefit has been reported from the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. Abu Dawood al-Marasil records on the authority of Zayd ibn Aslam that it was said, Messenger of Allah, how astonishing is the knowledge of such and such a person. He inquired, of what? They replied, of people's genealogies. He remarked, knowledge that is of no benefit, the ignorance of which causes no harm.
So he mentioned regarding concerning hadith, he mentioned, it says Abu Dawood in what? Marasil. So Abu Dawood rahimahullah has a book called Marasil, which hadith, so Marasil is where the narration in most part, they are not complete. They have a breakage in the isnad. So you have a collection, a book that collects concerning a hadith by way of the isnad, in most part that they are unbroken isnad, asanid. So this hadith is from this book. So this hadith itself, by mention, fi Marasil Abi Dawood. One understand the hadith is what? Weak. Nam? Aywa.
Abu Na'im.
So the ulama at times they will mention a hadith that is said to be, so hadith sometimes mentioned ihtijaj. At the time that the ulama will mention hadith by way of using it as an evidence. So the hadith, the text is being mentioned and the hadith is being mentioned as a proof, as an evidence. And that hadith should be of those that normally try to find hadith which are said to be hadith which is authentic. But at times they might mention in their books, after mention authentic hadith on a particular topic, they might mention a hadith on the same similar topic, but hadith that they have weakness. And at times in this time they will clarify the weakness. So those hadith are said to be, they're said to be supporting evidence, but they're not primary evidence because they're weak. So the main evidence would be mentioned first from authentic sources. Then what come after is just showing that you have many other sources that support that meaning of that hadith. But they said they use as istihsan, as a form of istihsan, as a form of kind of somewhat to use it too as a supporting evidence, but not as ihtijaj. So that sometimes you find in the books of ulama a hadith that are da'if that are used not as hujjah, as a ihtijaj, but by way of istihsan, as a way of support to back up what is being mentioned. Use it to back up what is being mentioned. Aywa.
Abu Na'im Riyad al-Muta'alimin records this hadith via the root of Baqiyya from Ibn Jurayj, from Ata, from Abu Huraira, from the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. This version mentions that they answered, he is the most learned of the people concerning the genealogies of the Arabs, poetry, the differences that existed amongst the Arabs. The end of this version adds, knowledge is of three types. Anything additional is surplus. An unequivocal verse of the Quran, an established sunnah, and an equitable inheritance. The chain of narration of this version is not authentic. Baqiyya is a mudallis, committing tadlis by avoiding making mention of a narrator who is not trustworthy.
And we said that Al-Baqiyya ibn Walid, so his name is Baqiyya ibn Walid, rahimahullah. And Baqiyya is said to be a person that Nasa'i rahimahullah called regarding Baqiyya. He's said to be thiqa. So a person generally is credible, unlike a qadi. So, but he said to be that at time in his narrations, he made up tadlis. And you see this often, where sometimes he can be a bit, he narrate in a way that is a bit, not per se negligent, but sometimes he might that he may skip things that he shouldn't, or mention things in a way that may the person that may give not maybe a bit not as he should. So, but tadlis is one of the terminology of the ulama of hadith regarding tadlis of a person. He would narrate on a person something that he did not hear from that person. So he narrate from a person that he heard from. So that's his teacher that he heard from, but at times he would mention things about his teacher that he did not hear from his teacher. Or at times he may not hear from that teacher, but that teacher is said to be weak, as a weak narrator. So at times he will mention him by either that, so sometimes he try to skip him and go to the person after him who said to be stronger. But they do it in a clever way. But it is known in the field of hadith. They use in a clever way type of thing. So you find but tadlis of different types. So for example, tadlis at times would be that's the sheikh that you have, and you mention him, use a name that is not known for that name. So sheikh name is Muhammad ibn Muhammad, and everyone knows him by that name. But you mention him as, and everyone knows him as Muhammad ibn Muhammad. But you mention him by Abu Zayd. No one knows him as Abu Zayd.
Which is kunya.
But it is kunya. But that's the part. But that's a name that is known. But is no one. But he has a child called Zayd. But no one refers to him as Abu Zayd. But you use it because you understand. So you use it for a reason where people might think he's someone else. But you're talking about the same person. But so you have tadlis of different forms, but it's aywa. So a person may have tadlis, but it doesn't mean a person is daif. Baqiyya is a person himself is thiqa, but because he fell into tadlis, then his narration have to be looked into carefully. Aywa.
The end of this hadith has also been recorded by Abu Dawood and Ibn Majah from Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, knowledge is of three types. Anything additional is surplus. An unequivocal verse of the Quran, an established sunnah, and an equitable inheritance. His chain of narration contains Abdul Rahman ibn Ziyad al-Ifriqi, who is well known to contain weakness.
So in the field of hadith, I said Ibn Rajab rahimahullah muhaddith. So he mentioned this particular hadith, and he's mentioned regarding concerning this hadith of the different narration, but all of them are weak. So you have either the hadith, it has supporting hadith or similar hadith from different companions with different isnad, but all the isnad are daif. So either the wordings are shared in different narrations, but all the narration by way of the isnad, they're weak. So Ibn Rajab rahimahullah wants to make this be known. He wants to make this be known. Mention fi isnadihi Abdul Rahman ibn Ziyad Afriqi, who is known to be that he mentioned fihi daf mashhur. So his weakness is well known. So a narrator of hadith that is considered to be either weak, either for one of the reasons ta'an fi adalatihi, that there's a criticism regarding his adala, his level of practice of Islam, his level of commitment. Or is adal regarding level of, and second is regarding concerning his dabt, his level of his memory of the hadith, how well he's able to retain that hadith. So after reason behind a narrator will be criticized, that either is adala, his credibility, or second by way of his memory, his ability to retain the hadith correctly. Aywa.
Genealogy and astronomy. The command to learn the genealogies such amount as would lead to knowing one's kinfolk has been reported on the authority of Abu Hurairah that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, learn of your genealogy such amount as would allow you to join the ties of kinship. Recorded by Tirmidhi and Ahmed.
So regarding concern is not to mention that thing that one can learn, but also without going in excess in those matters. So no one concerned the boundaries regarding of learning of those things. So there's an aspect of it that one can learn, but also the person not to be excessive in that. So I mentioned regarding concerning genealogy that one can learn of it to know one's lineage and the likes, but again without to maintain family ties, but without going into excess. Now becomes all the person does is just studying his ancestors. Now we divert him from other things. Aywa.
Humayd ibn Zanjawayh records this hadith via another route on the authority of Abu Hurairah that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "Learn of your genealogy such amount as would allow you to join the ties of kinship, then desist. Learn of the Arabic language such amount as would allow you to understand the book of Allah, then desist. Learn of astronomy such amount as would allow you to travel in the darkness of land and sea, then desist." This chain of narration contains the narrator Ibn Lahiha.
Aywa.
He
This is
also,
Abdullah ibn La'iya. Abdullah narrating also a long discussion regarding Ibn La'iya, regarding his narration. So he's also a Qadi of Misr. And yes, certain kalam regarding him is well known. His kalam regarding him, well known. So again, regarding concern that the Prophet is having concern, تَأَلَّوْ مِنْ أَنْسَابِ مَا تَسِلُ بِهِ أَرْحَامُكُمْ. That they mentioned the Prophet Islam, ثُمَّ انْتَهُوا. That regarding that of certain knowledge, learn to a certain extent where you do have some knowledge of this matter, but without going too far. So without going too far into that thing. So he mentioned regarding ansab, lineage, regarding al-Arabiya, learning of the language, without being too excessive. Then learning regarding concerning things of astronomy or the stars, but also without being excessive and without passing certain limits. So certain such thing one can learn, but without exceeding certain limits, without exceeding certain limits. Aywa. So also for a person to know what are those limits. Nam. Aywa.
he also recalls via the route of Nu'aym ibn Abu Hind that Umar said, learn of astronomy such amount as would allow you to travel through land and sea, then refrain. Learn of genealogy such amount as would allow you to join the ties of kinship, and would teach you which women are lawful for you and which are not, then refrain.
Aywa.
Mas'a reports from Muhammad ibn Ubaidullah that Umar ibn al-Khattab said, learn of astronomy such amount as would allow you to know the direction of the Qibla and routes of travel. Nakha'i did not see any harm in a person learning enough about astronomy to be guided through the land. Ahmed and Ishaq allowed learning about the phases of the moon as quoted from them by Harb. Ishaq additionally said that it was allowable to learn the names of the stars, such as would allow one to be guided while traveling.
Okay, so they mentioned regarding the science that learning enough where the person is able to know of the direction and the likes, but again, not exceeding. So knowing concerning the boundaries regarding that of the science, one can learn aspect of it, but also without going over the top. Aywa.
Qatada disliked that the phases of the moon be learnt.
Aywa. So that's the thing concerns. So you have of those science regarding that there's some individual who might be specialists in those fields because of their profession and the reason and a particular reason. But as for the general people, you learn just enough. So for example, for us, the common people, we said we learn of the stars, we are how to know the direction. You understand? As for us, we don't need to start to go into the detail of every star, where the position. We don't need that detail. So you have some that may require to go to a certain extent, but where it not become something where where people start to study the star, becomes something, an object now they start to worship. And think, I want to know every detail. They believe, as you're going to explain, or tell impact, they start to see that it have an impact on how things function in the dunya, in the galaxy. You understand? So knowing those limits where you don't go into, where it becomes, you start to see those things as how it influence, we'll use the word nature, how things function. So in some of those things, for example, look at Arabiya, that amongst the Muslims there should be some who are specialists in that field. They have gone to the highest level of specialization. But as for the majority of the Muslim, we don't need to have that skill or to go to that extent, but yes, we should have some degree of knowledge of Lughat Arabiya. So just like with any language, most people just go to a certain degree of learn that language, but you do have those who exceed and gone further in studies. They'll be the minority, as most people would not need that level of in-depth study in that field. So it's us knowing the person who taught the ilm, his level will be a bit higher regarding Lughat Arabiya. the person who is the general Muslim, you understand, is of a level, the alim and the people specialists in Lugha Arabiya, then they would need to go to a next degree. They'll need to go to the extent that is suitable for them. Aywa.
Qatada disliked that the phases of the moon be learnt, while Ibn Uyayna did not allow it. Harb quoted this from them. Tawus said, perhaps the one who studies the stars and the letters of Abu Jad has nothing in his favor with Allah, recorded by Harb. It was
so Harb rahimahullah, of those regarding Masail, said he has book of Masail. So for example, you listen from the ulama and record regarding their response, they call them Masail. So Harb regarding Ahmad ibn Hanbal and others, that you'll collect regarding their riwayat, narration that have been transmitted upon them regarding their like fatawa. So they'll record their fatawa on different matters. So they call Harb Kirmani. So his name is Harb Kirmani. Now recently there's a book in Aqidah that has been printed, very good book. Something a bit strong, but I have a book in Aqidah that have been printed of recent. Aywa.
It was also recorded by Humayd ibn Zanjaway that Tawus has Zanjaway that Tawus as a saying of Ibn Abbas.
You could say Zanjaway or Zanjuya. So it can be Zanjaway or Zanjuya. So you find that Ahl Lugha, they would say Sibaway. As the Ahl Hadith see the word at the end that as way as one of the name of shaitan. So they said Ra'uya, Zanjuya. But Ahl Lugha say Sibaway or Zanjaway. Aywa. So the khilaf between Ahl Hadith and Ahl Lugha as how they pronounce those particular names. Mashi.
This is to be understood to refer to knowledge of astrology, not to that knowledge that allows one to navigate through the earth, the former being totally false and prohibited. There is a hadith concerning this in which the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, whoever acquires knowledge from the stars has acquired a branch of magic, recorded by Abu Dawood on the authority of Ibn Abbas. He also recalls the hadith of Qabisa that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, taking good omens from the flight of birds after frightening them, iyafa, taking evil omens in things, tiara, and geomancy, tarq, are all forms of magic. Iyafa refers to the practice of divination through frightening birds, and tarq refers to the practice of divination through drawing lines on the earth. Therefore, astrology is false and prohibited, and enacting those actions that lead on from it, such as seeking to draw close to stars or offering sacrifices to them, constitute disbelief. As for learning such knowledge as would allow one to navigate through the earth, know the direction of the Qibla, and allow the routes leading to various places, this is permissible in the view of the majority. There is no need to learn any more of this science than this amount, and to do so would serve to preoccupy one from learning more important things. It is possible that studying this science in minute detail would lead one to start doubting the directions of the Qibla that have been set up by the Muslims in their lands. Indeed, this has actually happened to many astronomers, past and present. This then leads to disbelief. This then leads to the belief that the companions and tabi'een prayed in the wrong direction in many of the lands they settled in, and this is a false, invalid belief.
Yes, that becomes so they can somewhat go into detail regarding this matter, regarding the direction, where they want to be so precise that the Qibla, you have somewhat a little leeway. So because we have today that type of giving directions, compasses, that are more precise. So people rely upon that. But even if you were to be a bit out a little, then you're still within the limits. So you don't have to be exactly, even though the compass, you have to be exactly on point with the compass. So yes, we try to be as on point as possible. But the person a bit out, then he still hasn't done anything wrong. His salat is still valid. So because of this, of them kind of somewhat being very precise, they start to question regarding those before them, where they believe maybe a bit out a little, they see their salat as being invalid. So they start to have start to have bad thoughts about those who proceed of not being as precise as they are in finding the direction of the Qibla. Now, so you can see their salat as being in not being valid and the like. So that's the thing that Sheikh mentioned, that sometimes in being so precise, then we start to create doubts and bring problem upon ourselves. Now, so you give the example regarding the Qibla. So a little leeway, if you're out, but you're still in the direction, your salat is still valid. Now, but when a person believes that you have to be on point, if you're not on the point, on the dot as they say, then your salat is invalid, then that's a bit over the top. Now, then that is not the correct approach. Aywa.
This is why Imam Ahmed rejected the use of the North Star for determining the direction of the Qibla. Instead, saying all that is reported is what is between the east and the west is the Qibla, meaning that there is no hadith stating that the North Star or any other star should be given consideration in such matters. Ibn Mas'ud rejected the words of Ka'b when he said the heavenly spheres are subject and determined subject to determined movement, and likewise such matters were rejected by Malik and others. Imam Ahmed even rejected the statement of some astronomers that noon, zawal, occurs at different times in different lands. It is possible that their reasoning behind rejecting this, or at least the reasoning of some of them, was the fact that the messengers had never spoken about such issues. This despite the fact that the astronomers declared this fact with certainty. It is well possible that devoting oneself to the minute of such sciences may lead to severe problems and widespread friction.
Aywa.
Some astronomers use their knowledge to reject the hadith of descent at the last third of the night by saying the last third of the night occurs at different times in different countries, so it is not possible that the descent occur at one time.
So you find out because of this matter that Imam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, that he wrote a book, Hadith al-Nuzul. So discussed somewhat to clarify this matter regarding descent. So you find that those who somewhat start to try to go into details, that they had some doubts regarding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala descent at the last third of the night. So you see that the world, people at different night for different parts of the world, maybe a bit slightly, maybe different, and that's without fact. So that somewhat they start to have doubt regarding if it's the third, then for this person, that person. So they start to have doubt regarding matters, which is due to lack of understanding of the text. So Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, of those who have written a book that can somewhat to clarify regarding how to understand that hadith correctly, and regarding what is meant by the third of the night for each. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala descend at the third of the night. So some texts, a person might have some misunderstanding or lack of clarity, but due to certain factors, but for that person, go back to the people of ilm and they will give them that clarity. And especially regarding that matter relates to what said matters for some of some who came after, matter of bab of sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So of those who had some issues regarding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's some of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sifat, then of this discussion became a part of it regarding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala nuzul. So generally have problem regarding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala descent. So even these hadith even just add to their doubts. Add to their doubts. And so you have one thing, a person having doubt and not a lack of clarity on certain things and rejecting the text. So if the text is authentic, then we should see that if any misunderstanding that from our part, we maybe misunderstand the text. But you always find those who are able to clarify the text, but not to, because of our misunderstanding of the text, to use it as a reason to reject the text. So the difference regarding having a misunderstanding about a text which is authentic, or hadith, and regarding a person because of his misunderstanding, then he just dismiss the text and reject it because I don't understand it. So he understand that have nothing to do with Islam. Then that's a serious claim. That's a serious claim. Aywa.
Is that when the person uses the aql before the?
So of those reasons, the person that he's using his own. Is using to measure things based upon his own intellect. So if we find that the text doesn't fall in line with his way of thinking, then he said, okay, then he dismisses it and rejects it. Then that's a problem from his side. That's not a way to approach things. Aywa.
No. The repugnance of this claim is known in the religion by necessity. If the messenger, peace and blessing be upon him, or the rightly guided Khalif were to have heard such claims, not only would they have not listened to them, but they would have rushed to punish these people, or would have considered them amongst the rank and file of the deniers and hypocrites.
Yes, so should have Salaf were very harsh against those type of people. Very harsh regarding so. Can you imagine the Khulafa Rashidun being present and hearing something that we are saying today? For some of the people, Allah Mustan. Aywa.
Delving into minutiae of permissible sciences.
Aywa.
The same applies to delving too deeply into the science of genealogies. There is no need for it. The words of Omar and others have proceeded concerning its prohibition, despite the fact that a group of the companions and successors knew this science and studied it. The same applies to delving too deeply into the Arabic language and its morphology. Indeed, to do so serves to distract one from learning more important matters, and to devote oneself to it prevents one from acquiring much beneficial knowledge.
So regarding concerning, you mentioned tawassufi, certain ilm which is said to be mubah. So tawassul, the person that can go in depth into certain things that are mubah. He mentioned ilm al-ansab, which regarding genealogy. Then said that as genealogy that not one of the direct science of Islam. It's not one of the direct science of Islam. But they mention as a second example, so is approaching that there's no need to go in depth in most part. They mention tawassul fi ilm al-arabiyya, al-lugha wa nahu. So then he mentioned also an example regarding tawassul, going too in depth into study things regarding lugha al-arabiyya by way of an-nahu and its other sciences. Then those matters is that it does not negate regarding that for a person to be regarding it's still considered to be one of the science of Islam regarding studying of Lughat Arabiya. And to the extent where for a person to be said to be that an alim, a person can never attain the level of an alim mujtahid except he have Lughat Arabiya. So it's something that is still but so it has a place, and the person has to know be well grounded to a great extent in this language of Lughat Arabiya, to be an alim. Because a lot of stuff, and I said regarding istinbat from the Quran and Sunnah, it relates to the language. So a lot of concern ahkam that relates to understand the text, the person must understand the language. So the person must have and to understand the language, to adapt where the person can extract rulings based upon the language. Aywa. So you find that in ilm al-usul al-fiqh, of those things that is a part, the branches of those areas that one must study are the things that are covered in usul al-fiqh, that is regarding dalalat al-alfaz, knowing what is meant from the words that are being used. So the person can extract rulings by the wordings and how they're being used. So that's a part of knowing the language. That's a part of knowing the language. So yes, one not to understand that, do away with the language, just learn Medina book 1 and that's it, then that's not it. It's not the person who's learning Medina book 1 and that's it, as an example. Or what are the person have to go to above this by many folds. Aywa.
Al-Qasim ibn Khaymara disliked Arabic morphology. He said, its beginning stages is a distraction and it ends in transgression, meaning by delving too deeply into it and its complexities. The same stance was held by Ahmed, who disliked...
Somebody statement the ulama regarding concerning that awwaluhu shughul wa akhiruhu bagyun, that sometimes the ulama regarding that sometimes they use very stern words in discussing certain things, so it's going to somewhat as a caution of being excessive. So they use stern words so as one do not become excessive in that thing, but so not to be seen that thing is to be dismissed completely concerning learning of the language. It doesn't mean the statement that one should dismiss learn a language at all. So for a person to really, as I said, as a talib, to learn to understand the Quran and the Sunnah and the Qur'an of the ulama, he needs the language and to understand the words, how they are used, the mustalahat that are used, So the person must understand those things, and that's a part of learning the language. So it is something that's a must to be learned. But without going, for each not going, knowing their level, Aywa.
The same stance was held by Ahmed, who disliked studying the Arabic language too deeply, and when he learned of Abu Ubaid doing so, objected by saying, it diverts one from studying more important matters. This is why it is said that Arabic language is like salt on food, meaning that you take of it as much as would correct one's speech, and anything additional spoils it. The same applies to delving too deeply into mathematics, even though it is required to carry out duties such as apportioning of inheritance, wills, and the division of property amongst those who are due to it. Anything additional to this is merely mental exercise and serves to sharpen the mind. There is no need for it, and to delve into it preoccupies one from that which is more important.
So the chapter mentioned regarding ansab, as it relates to Islamic science indirectly, or which is the Islamic science by part, but we're concerned that knowing of those people who are said to be from your family members, and that also would now impact by way of hukum who you can marry and cannot marry. So to an extent, knowing of the one's family line is something that, yes, needs to be known and a part within the science of Islam. So it's within part of the science of Islam to know regarding the bab of concerning who you're allowed to marry, and also ansab comes into those matters. Also Lughah Arabiya, the person needs to study a degree of Lughah Arabiya as within the science of Islam. Then he mentioned also regarding mathematics, regarding concern that for the person to carry out regarding matters regarding inheritance, he has to know how to make those calculations. So those sciences are not presented one of the main sciences, but they're one of the sub-science that aid other things. So they aid other things. So the person that's a talib al-ilm, he learns from those science what he needs, so he can fulfill those direct duties correctly. But without, he needs to go to be a mathematician. But he must know a bit where he can do concerning matters related to inheritance and the likes. Aywa, you were saying?
As for
I said genealogy concerns knowing who's your family members. You understand? So who you can marry, who you cannot marry. So it comes into play in your lineage. Aywa.
As for those sciences that were invented after the time of the companions, whose proponents claim that they are true knowledge, and that whoever is not aware of them is either an ignoramus or misguided. All of them are innovations and are to be counted amongst the newly invented affairs that have been prohibited.
So also you find regarding concern of the ulum that have been said that dakhil, that have been somewhat entered upon the sciences. So you have certain thing which is the base of the science, have certain usul and foundation, fundamental things that one should study. Then you have things that have now entered, that are foreign stuff that have been placed within certain science that in essence is not a part of it. So you find that all the sciences, you said an introduction of things that are really foreign to that science have been added to them. And in some cases, can I somewhat use the word, can I somewhat have change or water down those science to a degree. But then you need that, but is purging those science of those things. So you find usul al-fiqh, you understand that thing of entering into usul al-fiqh that is not really from usul al-fiqh, but is within what is now that what have been mentioned by some as usul al-fiqh and become like fundamental things, but in reality is not usul al-fiqh, but have been entered. Ilm al-hadith, of certain things regarding ilm al-hadith have entered in the science of ilm al-hadith, but in reality is not of the essence of ilm al-hadith, not from that science. For example, that they go into depth regarding concerning matters regarding a hadith mutawatir. And you understand, to certain matters that are discussed regarding a hadith mutawatir, in reality it's not from ilm al-hadith. But have been, you understand, is from others, is not from by essence, because a hadith mutawatir, because they come by a large group of people narrating the same thing in all its tabaqat, all different levels. You don't need to verify anything. So you understand, so you don't need to scrutinize, because so many people 50 people come and tell the same information, different people come and tell the same thing. Then 50 people, another 100 people told them, another, you understand? So there's so many people saying the same thing on all levels. You don't need to verify the information to you is solid, it's authentic. So I don't need to check everyone. So those things, we said that, but it is covered, but to a degree where it was a little bit, that kind of somewhat is not really from ilm al-hadith, as mentioned by Ibn Hajar and the likes. Now, regarding aspect of al-hadith mutawatir, we find that al-hadith mutawatir, it came into the science of Islam by those people regarding al-kalam. So ilm al-kalam, where they can somewhat see a hadith by way of two hadith, they refer to a hadith al-mutawatir ahad is from them, not from the scholars, not from the original scholars. It's from those who can somewhat they try to divide because of they see a hadith mutawatir as they refer to it as, where those hadith we can rely upon them, and a hadith mutawatir we can somewhat we have doubt about them because they have only a few people narrating them. So in matters they have certain distinction in matters of aqidah and in certain matters of ahkam. We can't rely upon these few narration, only one person, two person. We can't rely upon those. Yes, and it's too small amount of people giving us an information that we're supposed to act upon. So let's see, so those hadith at times they would dismiss them because they see it as we can't rely, if the hadith is authentic and the man are authentic, but they're talking about something that is very crucial matter, so we can't rely upon them. So so you find that they made a distinction so as to dismiss certain hadith. So aywa. So certain thing you mentioned as aywa.
So this would be something which has been added.
It has been added. You understand? So those are things that they said that have been added due to factors, due to certain factors. So you find also that in all the science, you find that there are things that have creeped into those science that really should not and need to be removed. So you find that some of the ulama that have tried to, for example, usul al-fiqh, as we might discuss regarding of the ulama who try to return usul al-fiqh back to the things that is of usul al-fiqh, and not things that are not within this, have been placed in the science, but not from the science. So you find the likes of Ash-Shatibi, who try to hold to those things of what is relevant or that is important to the science and relevant, and that is the word so those things that really is of the science, he try to stick to those things, and that which is not, put them aside. You'll find the light of Muhammad Amin al-Shinkiti, the find of Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi, kind of somewhat keeps to the thing within the science of usul al-fiqh. Also the light of Sam'ani in his book Qawati Adillah. So you find other ulama who try to sift through things. So if we compare concerning the first book in Usul al-Fiqh as I've reached us is the book of Ash-Shafi rahimahullah, Imam Ash-Shafi, the book of Risala. You would compare the book of Risala of Imam Shafi and the books that came after, you find a clear distinction of the thing that he discussed and the thing that they discuss. So those things are there, those things that are there. Aywa. But okay, what point?
Discussing al-qadr.
So we start up. We're going to stop at that point, inshallah ta'ala, and continue next week. Bi'awnillahi ta'ala. So we said we'll be doing this book. I'll try to complete this book within the next couple of weeks. So we have started from yesterday, and so it will be replacing our normal Saturday and Friday lesson. So Fridays normally do Muqtada Sahih Bukhari by Zabidi. So we'll pause on that until we complete this book. And also Saturday we normally do Al-Arba'in and Nawawi. So also we pause on Arba'in until after we have completed this book, and they will resume inshallah ta'ala. Wa billahi ta'ala